Hello, everybody. This is Jenny Luscombe, and this is Feeling is Healing. And today I'm going to be talking about one of the gene keys. And I know that I've dipped into this on and off over the last couple of years that I've been doing this show. So I get like a weekly newsletter from the Gene Keys, which informs me what the frequency of the moment is, basically. It's all kind of connected up to astrology, lots of things that I don't really understand. But when I look at my profile, it's like, this is your life from the 80s, It's me. It's me. My profile is me. So it's got my shadows, it's got my mastery aspect, that if I transmute that shadow and I get on the path of the gift, which is in the middle of the shadow and the mastery, the mastery is our destination. But the Gene Keys, you can get a free profile on the website based on your date of birth, place of birth, time of birth. And it's basically the book of your life, and it's the map. It's the map. So me and my daughter share a couple of gene keys, and I think that is actually the way it works out for anybody who is a parent. We are connected to our children and to our own parents through specific gene keys. So the one that I'm talking about today is gene key 49. So this is all about the shadow of reaction, which through the gift of revolution, which is kind of the middle in between the shadow and the siddhi, the mastery, this leads to the mastery of rebirth. Now, gene key 49 and gene key 55 are connected up to the collective. And I think that because I've got this one and I've got gene key 55, which is all about victimization and freedom, this is why I get so much synchronicity and I get so many clues from what's happening in the world, connected up to what's happening with me. So I get a lot of insights specific to my chart and what goes on around me. So the innovator of the gene key, I don't know if innovator is the right word, Richard Rudd, he downloaded all of this from the universe, and it took him quite a few years to integrate. This shadow of reaction is changing the world from the inside. And that really resonates with me because that's what I feel that I'm doing with all my inner work, making changes at the microcosm level, which then affects the macrocosm. And many of us know on this spiritual path that if we bring unity and integration within, then we're going to see more of that outside of us. So the way that Richard Rudd describes what is happening inside all of us, whether this is a relevant gene key for you or not, it affects all of humanity. This is the coal face of a genetic mutation within humanity, where we're literally evolving into a new version of human, and it's chemically connected to gene key 55, which me and my daughter have. So I think that the interaction of these aspects highlight perfectly how we often get ourselves into a twist, looping and getting stuck in thought patterns, basically of our own creation, becoming victims of our own dysfunction. And there's no judgment coming from me about that. And like everybody knows that when we're triggered, it's a previous version of self that is being activated. So that could be us age 4, it could be us aged 12. And it explains a lot, when we're around another person who is reactive and triggered, that there is a child self that is being activated. So this is a particularly powerful time to be working with this energy, and also because it's about our power. This is connected up with our solar plexus chakra, and with everything that's happening in the outside world, everybody is getting triggered by something. So this is about our relationship to ourself, but also our relationship to others and how we perpetuate conflict, whether that's internal conflict or external conflict. So the dilemma here is all about our needs. So this is about how we can get trapped by our needs. And Richard Rudd uses the example of how we might have to have, like our cup of tea or our coffee in the morning to feel okay. That's a need. And we do it every day. It's a need, but I guess it's a habit as well. Or, for some people, it's, I need to put my makeup on, So if for whatever reason you don't get your coffee or you don't get to put your makeup on, like there's some unforeseen circumstance, then there's that sense of, I feel wrong. Like I just don't feel right. I feel wrong. So kind of like we can only exist if that thing happens every day. So everyone's had some kind of experience like that, where you realize your dependence on something to feel good or to feel okay or to feel normal. So if you look at that, it's a need that you have that you're kind of trapped by. Because if you weren't trapped by that need, then it wouldn't actually have bothered you that it didn't happen due to that unforeseen circumstance. So the thing is with needs is that we can't heal ourselves out of a need. We can't not have needs. So this isn't about not allowing ourselves to need. This is this is about looking at the emotion that is triggered when the need isn't met. So we need food, we need love. So if we don't get those, we really do react. These are needs that are very difficult to live without. So this gene key all about reaction. This is about acknowledging our needs, but noticing when we are being tripped up by them in terms of our solar plexus, our personal power center. So this is about noticing when we lose our center. So when our needs are not met by somebody outside of us, for example, when we assumed that they would be, or we expected that they would be. So we sometimes see that kind of situation as somebody outside of us triggering us. So it's just a matter of perspective. So our needs and desires are sometimes seen as what cause our suffering. And there are a lot of mystics going back, and a lot of Buddhism, ways of looking at Buddhism, seeing desire as the bad guy. Like we have to stop desiring. But I think that's flawed thinking, because if we didn't have our desires, then how would we expand the universe? So we need to bring in change through desire. So as we go through our lives, we realize what needs and desires are nourishing to us and which ones aren't. So, for example, you could have like a harmful addiction that was damaging your health. There must be some sort of payoff there, otherwise you wouldn't be addicted to it. But ultimately, you can see how it's harming you. And then something else, maybe like a work project, there's something nourishing about that. So needs and desires are not necessarily good for us, but it's about discernment. So as we ascend on this path, we're going through this kind of sorting and sifting process. We're sorting through what to keep and what to discard. So we could realize that we could let go of the coffee in the morning and actually nothing is lost, really. So it's not really needs that are the problem, it's the reaction. So it's the reaction we have when our needs are not met that we then end up being our 5-year-old self or our 10-year-old self. So this is what causes suffering, actually. I don't think it's the desire itself. It's our untamed reaction to that. And it's about responsibility as well. And so the freedom running through this gene key is about learning how to not be a victim of our own needs, but to accept them. So it's only when we don't accept them or someone isn't meeting a need for us that we get this trapped feeling. So this shadow of reaction is asking that we look deeply into our daily needs. So our need for things to be a certain way. So our need for outcomes to be the way that we want them to be. So what we can do when we feel triggered or emotional is we can try and get into this recognition of the situation that we're in. So get that external version of internal version of yourself to look immediately at the source need. So pausing is always a good idea. So the way that I do this now, and it's taken a lot of practice, obviously, with reaction being one of my gene keys that's in my profile. This has been a big thing for me for a long time, and it still rears its head. So when the emotional reaction comes, the purpose of it is that there is information. There's information. It's an opportunity. It doesn't always feel good. And usually it doesn't feel good. So I try to bring in how interesting. So I kind of go into that. So something's happening here. I need to pause. And before I lose my shit and say something I'm going to regret or hurt somebody, what do I need to do? What do I need to notice? So what's this really about? So everybody needs to find like a question that can jolt them into reality. So I'm having this trigger. I'm having a reaction. This means there's information for me. So the knee-jerk reaction is to go into the blame shame game with the other person, to fly into conflict. And it does make sense. A lot of us have been doing that all our lives, and it's kind of what we were taught to do by our parents. So what's here is a really good question. What is this really about is a really good question. So a good way to do this is to dive into the emotion. So when you realize that this emotion is indicating a need, is to just go diving into it and look for that need. And the way that I do that is I use tapping on the thymus point, because it's always, for me, the best way of bringing the cortisol down, so the stress hormone, bringing that down so that you can become more rational as quickly as possible. And the thymus is all about connecting with yourself anyway, and it positively affects all the systems of your body. It brings you back into reality. It helps you see both objectively and subjectively, left brain, right brain, all of it. So I think wondering is a really good energy as well. So what we need to do is allow the need to surface. So ask yourself, what is the need? What is the need here that is not being met? So bring awareness to it. Feel the emotion. Allow it. And then wonder, is this need good for me? Is this a nourishing need? Is this a dysfunctional need? So keep feeling the emotion of the need not being met. So this person is just playing a role for you. They've activated this opportunity for you. So if you can, stay with it for long enough to know, is it a valid need? So in discovering if it's a valid need or not, and only you can decide that, then you can keep it. You don't have to get rid of a need, and actually you can't. You can't heal yourself out of a true need. But you can, by being with the emotion, you can release that energy, but you can still keep the need. And by being in the emotion and the energy itself, it will probably trigger a memory which will show you where this trigger originated from in the first place. So I like how actually Richard Rudd says, hunt them out, because that really works for me as well. Because if you go looking for these things, you're not in resistance to them when they happen. So I've been in resistance to a lot of my emotional experiences, a lot, in my life. And it kind of explains my path in a way, like how I've ended up being a therapist and doing what I do. So our reaction patterns, if we go looking for them, then we have less resistance to them in the first place, and it's actually less painful. So you project less onto other people as well. You project less harmful resistance onto them, and you create an easier experience for yourself. So I'm going to give you like a 1, 2, 3. So it's a simple practice based on the realization that our needs, whether they're beneficial or not, create expectations, which can then lead to disappointment if they're not met. So this is the loop. So it's such a familiar loop to some of us that we just get stuck every single time. We get stuck in powerlessness, and it just feels like, oh my God, here it is again. This same thing keeps happening with this person, or the same thing keeps happening with all the people, everybody. And years and years go by and we don't realize actually there's something we can do about that. So number one, I would say, when you're triggered, just ask the question, what do I need? You can use tapping if you wish to tune into that. Just let the awareness come. Find the roots of that need. So just pay attention to what the emotion makes you think about. Ask yourself the question, what do I need? So you can identify what's really happening. And then that enables you to become the adult, because when we're triggered, we are becoming, on some level, the child self. And that's okay. That's just how it works. So number 2, just dig into the needs. So allow yourself to have the need, regardless of whether it's healthy or not. Feel the emotion. So just step into it. Watch it move. Look at the shape of the emotion, the size of the emotion, the texture of it in your body. Sense its vibration. Ask it to speak to you. Ask it questions. Know that it's information. So just be open to a flow of information coming to you, which kind of feels like epiphany or realization. There might be some kind of metaphorical representation in there, some visual image, whatever it appears to you as. Welcome it, even if it's intense, which it normally is going to be if it's a trigger. Otherwise, you wouldn't have suppressed it in the first place. So this is you surfacing subconscious information. So welcome it even if it's intense. You can speak to it as if it's a being, tell it that it's safe for it to exist in your body. And then let your body's natural intelligence just know what to do with it, because it does. All we have to do really is to allow it to be there, to kind of go into a surrender, and to allow the body to do what it needs to do. And then for us to just receive the opportunity. What's the information? Hit me with it. What do I need to know? What am I learning? So that's number one. Number two. So basically, ask, what do I need when you're triggered? Then dig into it in a deep way. Go within. Just allow the experience. And then any awareness that you bring to this is going to create space in this situation, and it's going to enable you to breathe freedom into this circumstance that's just triggered you. So as a result of doing this, every single time you get triggered, you will notice more peace coming into your life, because you've figured out how to step out of the loops. So the loops are where it's at, the loops are where we've all been had. The loops are, where we've all been stuck. And, I get stuck in loops still. And I'll give you an example. So recently, me and my daughter, we had friends coming over, and we were both looking forward to that experience. And it was a weekend. She had some stuff to get done for school, but she was procrastinating and she didn't get it done in time. And then when the friends came, it was kind of interfering with our peace. She was kind of like, oh, I've got to get this thing done. And then she couldn't relax and be in the flow of the visit of our friends. So she couldn't be in the moment. So I was triggered because she hadn't done the thing. She knew in advance that the friends were coming. She knew she needed to get the stuff done, but she didn't. So I was unconscious about it, and I was triggered because I'd just trusted her to get it done, and I assumed that everything would flow and everything would be great. So my reaction on this occasion was I was angry. I was a bit angry and I was unsympathetic. So when I dug into this and I did the 1, 2, 3, I realized that the need that I had was for commitment, something along the lines of commitment. Like I wanted her to commit to me, to commit to the plan, to commit to our friends that were coming, to be present with them, to commit to the experience. And interestingly, the reflection, also in there was her commitment to herself, and just doing the thing, getting the thing done. So I looked at the need and I looked at the roots, and for me it was a trigger connected to, from childhood, feeling like I didn't matter. I wasn't supported in my endeavours as a child very often, and that led then to expectation, which then led to disappointment. So if we can see this looping chain that we're always in, we have a need, then we have an expectation about that need, and then if we're relying on somebody external to us rather than ourselves to meet that need, that's when the disappointment comes. So it's a setup. We've set ourselves up. Like, if you can see the setup, you can start to help yourself and go a different way. So I was stuck in this loop as a child often, and obviously this was happening with my daughter because I needed to work on another layer of that. So I realized, I was relying on her to meet my needs, which she didn't meet my need, and it wasn't fair that I was doing that. So in sitting with the emotion, I came out of my child self. I realized I'd made her partly responsible for the outcome of my friend's visit. I was needing her to be a certain way. I was needing her to be different to how she was actually choosing to be. She's got her free will. And I kind of invaded it by needing her to be a certain way. So she was then triggered by my emotion about that, which then triggered me more. So the looping creates looping, which creates more looping, which creates more looping. So then I experienced her as not caring for me and as being unkind to me because I was in a trigger. So I was feeling let down and she was feeling let down. So I was let down by her because she didn't clear her workload for us to enjoy the friend's visit. So I experienced her as acting like she didn't care as a result of people from my past not caring, not because of her. So her experience of procrastinating was because of something personal to her, nothing necessarily to do with me. So I was projecting my needs onto her. So my triggers and traumas are no excuse for bad behavior or projection. But in the moment, it just makes sense that it's the other person's fault. So we're just all perpetually like in this game of I win, you lose. I'm right and you're wrong. And this is all about responsibility. So it's not wrong to have the emotion itself or to have the trigger. But if we're going to grow and take responsibility for ourselves and to meet our own needs, then it isn't okay to subject others to our emotion just because we were hurt by someone else from the past, and we need to have our emotions heard. So that person doesn't have to do that. My daughter doesn't have to do that. She doesn't have to look after me in that way, and I don't normally expect her to. But in the moment of trigger, that's kind of what I was asking her to do. So obviously she was triggered by that. She didn't have to do that. She was having her own experience and her own fight with herself for other reasons. She didn't need me kind of projecting onto her on top of that. So it's my reaction that hurt her. So it's difficult for me as a traumatized being, but actually it's my job to master my emotion so that she doesn't get caught up in my stuff from the past, that's nothing to do with her. So we go into this kind of blindness that never gets us anywhere. So this is why this 1, 2, 3 process is a really good idea, because after that processing, like I went into that processing, you can then make sure that other person knows that you don't blame them for anything. It's your emotion, it's your trigger. So it wasn't fair for her, for my PTSD reactions to flow out of me and kind of into her life. But this is what we're all doing on some level until we surface it. So it made me see that maybe I'd been expecting her to be a certain way around my reactions generally, which wasn't at all fair. So I was mortified, and she hadn't done anything wrong, but I'd made her the bad guy for something that was my responsibility. So it's helped us to step out of a loop where we're both actually able to see each other more clearly and ourselves, and to be more mindful of the other's experience. So it's kind of like this shadow of reaction. So whenever we are reactive, it's kind of like it highlights that we are all, we have a narcissistic version of self, whatever way inclined we are always, when we're in fear, more narcissistic than when we're not in fear. So we are kind of in that moment, we're kind of making it all about us, all about ourselves. And we forget that other person is existing in their own experience over there, and that their perception of what is going on for us is totally different probably than what we're actually experiencing. So both our soul and our body have needs. So our awareness is watching. Our awareness is always watching what we do when we have a need. So sometimes we meet a need, sometimes we don't. So if we need food and we don't get it, then we react with hunger. If we eat, then we've met the need. But if we eat too much, then our body is going to react to show us what we did. So it's all information. So the revolution right now is sorting out our needs. So putting some of them in the in tray, some of them in the out tray. This is the revolution that is the gift of reaction. But this is the revolution that is making us uncomfortable in the moment of reaction. So if you think about an image of like yourself, kind of like a little voodoo doll, and you've got all these pins stuck in you. When we're doing this 1, 2, 3, and we're triggered, and then we're thinking, okay, a need isn't getting met here. What's the need? And then we step into the internal experience of that need. We identify where it's coming from. We go back. We get in touch with reality, with what's really happening through processing our emotion. We can actually remove the pins. So we can take out our own pins. So each time we bring awareness to what's happening when we're reactive, then we can actually help ourselves breathe easier in an energetic way, and we can look at each situation consciously and create space and become more connected to what's real, you know. And, you know, I'm not saying here that it's okay for other people to abuse us, you know, or anything like that. It isn't. It isn't. And I'm not saying that it isn't okay to be angry. You know, sometimes anger is justified. You know, if someone's broken your boundaries or someone's bullying you, or it isn't really a black and white thing. This is why it's kind of calling for discernment. So if we look at each situation consciously and we create that space, we just become so much more peaceful. And if you do this regularly, you start to really forgive yourself as well for being a traumatized being and for being reactive, because the guilt loop is not a happy one. And guilt is kind of a pointless emotion if you think about it, because the function of it is to help you identify when you've done something that you don't want to repeat. So it's like a nervous system thing. It's a learning experience. You do something that hurts somebody, or you do something that hurts yourself, you do something that was ill-advised or whatever it is, and then you get the guilt reaction, you regret, and it's just a nervous system reaction to, okay, that's probably not something you want to do again. So you've learned that lesson. Then it's a really good idea to just release that feeling altogether, because you've learned the lesson. You don't need to carry that around. You don't need to carry around a boatload of pain called guilt. You can consciously set that down. So when we realize that our reaction has hurt someone else, we start to realize that ultimately hurting them just hurts us. And there's no point staying in defense and fight mode. And we're all, you know, all of us, we've been cruel, we've been insensitive, but we're human and we can learn from it. So the gift of revolution here is about forgiving ourselves for our reactions and our needs. And I really believe in normalizing the emotional experience. And we can keep the needs if they are right for us, or let them go if they're not right for us. So we can free ourselves and we can free other people. There's always more going on when there's conflict than we think immediately. So when we fly into the knee-jerk reaction, the rage and the I win, you lose game, which is really a zero-sum game that nobody comes out well. Sorry, I lost my thread there. Yeah, so we're basically, by being conscious here, we're creating an environment where we can also show others what they need and what they don't need, by our example. And it does really change things if you go in the direction of this and you make it a practice. So if you can get past the intensity of the emotion, which is the hard bit, and it's the bit that people don't want to do necessarily, and if you can see that it's temporary, working through that emotion from the reaction, then you actually create more flow in life as well. You don't get that stopping, starting. And it's about living life well on an individual level, which, if you can do that and become an example, that living life well on an individual level is kind of infectious, and then that will pass to another, and people will notice, and they might ask, what are you doing, or how are you handling things that seem intense, but I'm not able to do that, And then it passes from the individual to the family, and then to society. And in the Gene Keys, it's described as a creative rebellion, which I like. I like the idea of creative rebellion. So the rebirth here, which is the mastery of this shadow, it comes from something so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. Being able to step out of a looping struggle or a fight that is basically a scrambled up mess of confusion, and it's a lack of information. It's not knowing, isn't it, when you're in that loop? Like, I don't know how to get out. What is this about? I'm just going round and round and round. And then just by seeing the connection simply from the needs, which lead to an expectation, which leads to disappointment, which leads to reaction. If you just see that that's how it goes, that's how it goes, that's how it's always been, then we can start to make ourselves responsible for meeting our needs. And if other people don't meet them for us, that's okay. That, the people in your life that love you, they're going to want to meet your needs. And if you love them, you're going to want to meet their needs if you can, if you can. And I guess, like, something that bothers me when you look at relationships and you look at how society has set us all up to believe long-term relationships are the thing, and that's security, and that's how life works. And ultimately, many people are in relationships now that they're kind of looking at this one other person in their life, and they're expecting this other person to entirely meet all their needs, as if that person can do that. And that's incredibly unfair if you think about it. And, bordering on abusive as well. If you expect one person in your life to meet all your needs, ultimately we need to try and meet our own needs. We need to find creative ways of meeting our needs, but we also need to consciously seek out the people who want to meet our needs. So the people who, by meeting our needs, would be meeting their needs. And this comes back to what love really is. If you love someone, you take that person as a part of you. So ultimately, you can't hurt them without hurting yourself. So when they have a need, maybe you want to help them meet that need. If you can't meet that need, you might help them find someone else who can meet that need. But their well-being matters to you because you love them. So, yeah, a lot of us are in situations where we're surrounded by family or friends or long-term partners who they can't meet our needs, but maybe we think they should. So that's a holy mess as well in itself. And we just can't expect one other person to do that for us, because if you think about the divine design, we're supposed to be living in communities. We're supposed to be the village, we're supposed to be, this person is cars, this person is technology, this person is theatre, this person is healing. Like, there's supposed to be communities. We're supposed to be, all referring to somebody who wants to meet a need because they're an expert in that thing, and valuing a person's excellence is how interdependence works ultimately. So, disappointment and reaction, they only come when we've externalized the meeting of our needs. So externalizing anything really makes our outcomes uncertain or unstable. And we're just feeding into our own instability if we're relying on that. So it's about embodiment. It's about embodying our needs and coming to understand them. So making them conscious. Many of us in our adult life, we don't know what our needs are. And it's about time that we did. So we need to find ways of meeting them with ourselves, but also finding others who want to do that for us and that they would benefit from that. So this is about growing, and it's about having the sensitivity to allow others to exist with their experiences and their needs as well, and not expecting other people to just blindly serve us. So the rebirth here is that we are being reborn through our awareness of how we're all linked together and not separate from each other. So I'm quite curious about Richard Rudd's take on this gene key, and you hear other people talk about this as well, and it seems kind of like very magical and mystical. Like, he thinks this is a DNA thing, like this is a collective metamorphosis. And he's really sticking his neck out and saying that he thinks humans are actually undergoing this like monumental shift of becoming completely different. So basically becoming a new human, like a new species of human. And a lot of people think that those that are awake are instigating this and that we're kind of on the forefront of this evolution. And I believe in this. I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, he refers to the difference between the caterpillar and the butterfly, for example, and also the dragonfly. The dragonfly, before it's this beautiful airborne creature, it's a water creature. It's under the water. It lives under the water as this dragonfly larvae. There it is under the surface, kind of in the depths. And then it undergoes this like metamorphosis and this transformation, and it becomes this dragonfly with wings. I mean, the difference between the two experiences within the same life. This is the symbolism that Richard Rudd uses, that he's actually applying to humans. And, we've all heard about kind of gifts and new gifts and abilities coming online, and we all know that the natural way of humans is to be psychic and to have those gifts open, and that we've had them shut down. That's why many of us don't feel connected in that way. So I'm really curious about what's coming and the time scale of that, and what that's going to look like. And I think sort of if you zoom out, what's really happening with this gene key is that we're, as a collective, we're coming out of a narcissistic way of relating to each other, just being kind of caring about our own well-being, our own reactions and our own experience, and we're moving from that narcissistic, fear-based, me, I win, you lose kind of vibe into creating interdependence and synergy. So this, it's kind of like, you know, I think one of the main messages of this gene key is about kindness. You know, kindness and consideration go a long way when we're triggered, but you can't expect another person to see you. You can't expect them to see you in the truth of your 5-year-old or your 10-year-old that has been calling you. So I think I'm going to stop talking now. I've found it really, really interesting looking at that and becoming more aware of it. And it's a thing, you know, right now, kind of I think it's between the 7th of February and the 13th of February, this is kind of raising its head for everyone, for all of humanity. And this is about changing the world from the inside, which I love. I love that. Really resonates with me because it's so empowering, especially when we're feeling out of control and feeling like we don't have an impact on what happens and how it's all going to go. But yeah, I'm going to stop now. So if anyone's got any questions or wants to join in or say anything, then you're very welcome.
Nobody's unmiking, so I'll I'll quickly jump in, Jen, and just say thank you for today's show. And yes, it's been interesting, and there is definitely something afoot. There is a realization that's growing very, very rapidly. So yeah, definitely. I don't know if anybody else is feeling the same way.
Oh God, yeah, Andy, like it's absolutely off the scale, isn't it? The energy.
Yeah,
It really.
and if my ears have anything to go by, I've mentioned this a few times over the last 2 or 3 weeks that my ears just seem to be on fire most of the time. Today it was just the right ear. This
Yeah,
evening it's now both ears
yeah.
are on fire. But when I touch them, they're cold.
I know, yeah, isn't that strange? Because like it does actually say in this chapter about Gene P49 that the transmutation of the collective, the DNA thing that's happening it's about heat. If you're feeling heat in your body, then it's because, you know, you're somehow involved in that transmutation. And it's not something that we're doing. It's that our bodies are doing it. Like it's a natural phenomenon. And
Yeah, it's not like
you
I'm
know,
rubbing my ears to make them hot.
yeah,
I just feel sensational. They
yeah,
just feel hot.
yeah. You can probably tune into it and see if there's any information for you. But I think sometimes just let it happen. And yeah, just knows there is something happening. There definitely is.
Indeed, very, very much so. We've got quite a few people that's been listening. So if anybody else has got anything they want to throw into the mix, please feel free to unmic.
I have, but I'm driving.
Recording.
I'll be with you in a minute.
What was that, Litmus?
I said I do want to, but I'm driving, so I'll be with you in a second.
All right, okay.
I'll jump in quickly. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I just wanted to say I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed what you were saying about how we can be triggered and literally fire it on the person who isn't responsible. I thought that was really on cue. And I also want to just say, I just want to up your YouTube because your YouTube is fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome. And the shorts that you're putting up, brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to set the intention to be more regular because I'm not very consistent, and I'm not very social media at all. Like I'd rather be focused in the world, in the physical. But yeah, I do enjoy making the videos. I'm gonna try and do it a bit more regularly and see how I get on. But yeah, thanks, Jackie. Bless you. Anybody else want to join in or say anything?
I think Master wanted to there. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but they put up hi into the comments earlier.
Mm.
No, it looks like.
Shall I go?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Hello, this is Jane. I'm down as Mazda Jedi. Thank you
Oh,
so
hi,
much.
Jane.
Hiya, Chick. You all right, my sweetie?
Hi. Yeah, how are you?
I am very good, thank you. That was absolutely awesome. It's all right. We've been trying to send a message, but it won't let me send it. So I thought that really resonates with me also, and that was amazing what you spoke about. And I just wanted to say I am so looking forward to what's coming. And like you, don't know what it looks like, but I know it's better than what we've had, or what we've been used to.
Yeah, isn't it? It's so curious to know that, because I really do believe that we are in a transmutation, and that there is, we are furthering our evolution somehow, but it's nuts, isn't it? But we know how different we are when we're on this awakened path
That's
compared
right.
to people who are not, because like we can say things to each other that just seems normal, and other people just think that you're a nutcase or whatever. And the
Absolutely. I agree there 100%.
It's just like the contrast is huge, isn't it? And it's really exciting, but equally really scary as well sometimes. Like, but yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
Can you ask Jen what it looks like? And I said, you're unsure, aren't you?
Yeah,
But
I think that everybody can acknowledge that there's things like telepathy and energetic kind of aspects to us that are increasing and becoming kind of more functional. Like we're becoming more functional in like many different ways, but are our physical bodies going to change? I mean, some people say they are, but then what's that going to look like? Yeah.
I had a crazy dream this morning of when they stuff animals when they've died. Not rigor mortis. Oh goodness me, I've lost the word. Taxidermist.
Taxidermy.
Yeah.
I had they were saying put your suit on a hook. I'm like, yeah, but okay, how are you going to get my suit? The vessel or the body that I'm in. And he was like, so what are you going to do with like the inside of me? And they're going, well, somebody can eat it. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. What am I going to look like to everybody else? But it was just a crazy dream. And I thought, I wonder if like we're still going to be in this physical body on the outer, the outer, and maybe just the inner is going to be filled with something other like light or I don't know what.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's quite common for people that are awakened to look younger than other people that are kind of around the same age. And I think that that's kind of easy to explain because consciousness is often as a result of healing, whether you've been doing that consciously or not. Then it's cellular, so there's less density in the cells. So if there's less density in the cells, it makes sense that your aging would reverse, or that you would look youthful or healthy, or but you know, you hear stories as well, don't you, about Tibetan monks and, you know, people in far off places have reached ages of like 250 and things like that.
That's right, yeah.
And I think that there's probably a lot of undocumented circumstances like that. I mean, people are supposed to be able to levitate and bilocate, and yeah, it's mad. Like, I can't wait to get my
lines. Yeah. Oh, it's so exciting. I am really excited about it. And yeah, I can only thank you for sharing as you do. Bless your heart.
Bilocating,
Oh.
does that mean you could be in the kitchen making food?
My other half says, bilocating, does that mean I could be in the kitchen cooking while listening in here?
Yeah, it does, I think. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Well, I'll let somebody else ask a question and I'll stop. I'll mute myself again. But thank you, Jen. Bless you.
Thank you, Jane. And I like your Mazda Jedi name. I like that a lot.
Well, it's my other half's one. So I can't take any credit for that.
Master was gone.
Oh yes, Master was gone. Oh, you take care, sweetie.
Thanks,
See you
Jane.
soon. Bye, darling.
Bye.
Hey, Jen.
Hi.
Litmus.
Hi, Litmus.
Hiya. Yeah, good stuff. Really nice. And I was wondering where you heard about the thing with the heat in the body.
Oh, yeah, I think it was on one of the audios of the Gene Keys. There's a newsletter that you can sign up to called, I think it's called The Pulse. The Pulse, if you go on the Gene Keys, genekeys.com, somewhere on there you can sign up for the newsletter. And then when you get the how it all links into astrology, I think it's weekly, or is it fortnightly? I can't remember. But they'll send you the audio recording of Richard Rudd speaking about that specific gene key. And in the recording of Gene Key 49, I think he mentioned that the transmutate, like the heat that this gene key involved with the transmutation as you're moving along the gift of revolution from reaction to rebirth. There's a lot of heat. And I generally, with my self-healing, I experience a lot of heat when I'm transmuting these emotions. You know,
Yeah.
I guess it's what alchemy really is, isn't it? It's about, I mean, like, you can't get rid of the emotion, you can't get rid of the energy, but you're changing it. You're just instigating a change. And
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like cold as well. Like, it can be cold and hot at the same time, even sometimes. But, like, you know, something's happening in the body when you get
Yeah,
that
for
temperature
sure.
change.
Like you say, and if you feel anger, you can, you know, they tell us that's a negative thing, but of course it's a essential part of emotions, and you can channel that anger energy into something positive in the
Yeah,
world, you know.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I follow Richard on SoundCloud because he does stuff on SoundCloud.
yeah,
But I wondered, because I've noticed I don't feel the cold like I used to. You know, typically houses in Portugal are not heated and they're very badly insulated, and, you know, leaky windows, old single glazing, this kind of thing, because
yeah,
it's generally warm here, you know. But the couple of months in the winter when it's cold, you really notice it, you know. So, but I mean, the house is kind of freezing, but I'm walking around in my pants after. It's not really noticing it's cold, you know. And and then I touch my skin and it's cold, you know, and I think, oh, but I don't feel cold inside, you know, it's weird.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is my tinnitus has gone up a couple of notches lately.
Mm.
I mean, I only got it when if you like, I was more further down the path, should we say, when the tinnitus started happening. And just in the past, I don't know, 10, 20 days, I guess, it's kind of gone up from 1 to like 3 or 4, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I've noticed. And I was interested because Andy told me his ears were burning, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the ears and heat in it, but I'm getting the heat in the body, but the ears ringing, you know.
Yeah.
Especially with the solar flares. Yeah, and I'm feeling just super energized, you know, like someone's plugged me into something.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling like that as well. Like really awake. Like really,
Yeah,
like, almost like my eyes have widened. Like I'm just looking around, like
yeah.
expecting something. Like not in fear, but just kind of like,
No, excited. Yeah,
yeah,
excited.
yeah, kind of like, you know, what's going to happen now?
I know, right? And it's like you don't want to go to bed and you can't wait to get up and, you know, and get on the next day. So
Yeah, like
yeah,
just waiting for the next installment.
yeah, that's right. So it's exciting times. But yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. I like the gene keys and human design, but I don't know them as well as I do astrology. But I know they're all incorporated in. I think we all find our own thing that works for us, don't we? Our own framework
Yeah.
that resonates
Yeah.
with us. You know, it doesn't matter what it
Yeah.
is as long as it works for you. You know.
Yeah. I like the gene keys because it's like basically healing through contemplation. So it's really gentle, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really for people who don't want to go in for the like paying attention to difficult emotion, and like you just shift by having realizations, and it's a nice way to do it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's
and
cool.
I knew like when I first bought the book, The Gene Keys, I kind of intuitively felt how powerful it was because I left it there for 6 months without touching it. I was kind of almost scared to open it because I knew it was going to be a cataclysmic kind of monumental instigator of change in my life, and it really has been. It's helped me really understand myself.
Yeah, it's great.
I think it's only been about 3 years that I've been looking into it, but
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing.
Well, it's a
It's
relatively new phenomenon in the scale of time that we've had things like astrology, for example, in it. So yeah, it's
mm,
a lot of people have come across it
yeah,
recently.
yeah,
And human design, you know, and I gotta say, the sort of interpretations I've had from all three of those, they've all taught me something about
mm,
myself, you know, that I've
yeah,
found beneficial. And
yeah,
you know, you hear some people saying, "Oh, well, I don't like astrology. I like human design. Oh, I don't like that. I like the gene keys." Like, well, you can like them all, you know. You don't have to
yeah.
choose
It's
one, you know.
okay. Yeah, yeah. The more, the merrier, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Litmus.
Well, if nobody else has got anything to contribute, do you want to wrap it up with a few final words of wisdom, Jen?
Yeah, I can try and do that. Yeah, so I would highly recommend the Gene Keys as a way of healing, and I think the best way to start is to get your profile. So you can just go online, just put into Google Gene Keys free profile, and then I think you have to put in your date of birth, your time of birth if you know it. And I know not everybody does. Your town of birth. They're not going to steal your data. It's not that kind of organization. And then they send you quite a complicated chart with your specific gene keys. There's I can't remember how many, about 10 of them that are specific to you, that are kind of what the map of your life consists of. So the idea of it is that the shadows, the gifts, and the siddhis of each of these gene keys are in theory, what you chose into when you came into this life. So when your soul chose to come here to have this earthly experience, you chose these learning pathways specifically to advance yourself. So whether that's true or not, like, you know, they definitely apply to me, mine for sure. And everybody else that I know that has looked into it has been quite blown away by the information that they've received as a result of looking at their own profile. And then there's the Gene Keys book, which you don't read cover to cover. It's kind of more of a reference, like you dive into whichever chapter it is that you want to focus on. But yeah, it's all good stuff. All good stuff. But yeah, okay. So I don't know what I'll be covering next week, but I will be here next week. I had a couple of weeks off because I was dealing with all sorts of different things. But I'm going to try and get back into being weekly again. So I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks, Andy, as always, for this platform. Thanks, everyone.